How's it going, Chumpy Dumps? My name is TV, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing a quick guide for my overall build and the gear that I'm using on this playthrough. A lot of you have been asking what kind of sword I was using in my gameplay and what skills I like to use. So that's exactly what this video is going to be. So, let's get into it. So, starting off with our character, we have of course Execution, and I like to use Fatal Might. If you don't use this, you're bad at the game. There we have Perfect Counter. Of course, this is pretty standard ability. I like to go for Rain of Arrows. I know a lot of people like to go for Fatal Counter, not only because it looks badass, but because, you know, it's quite effective. The only issue is when you use the Fatal Counter, you can't actually defend any other attacks that come at you. And when you're playing on Brutal difficulty, which is the difficulty I prefer, that means you can take damage, which is literally going to kill you instantly. And you can't do anything about it when you're actually doing a Perfect Counter. Of course, you can gain might from every counter. The only issue is when you have this Fatal Might and the Brutal difficulty multipliers applied, this is, don't worry, just get your elf shot. Then of course we have Critical Strike. I like to use Unstoppable. It's alright. I mean, technically the pros or the tryhards will use Elven Precision, or you could do Reprisal. I mean, Reprisal is pretty awful. I mean, as I've just said, when I'm playing on Brutal difficulty, if I'm on low health I'm going to die anyway, and so Unstoppable is the way to go. Ground Finisher, I like to use Ray Shield. Ground Drain is okay, but like, you might as well just use Consume or something, considering you're going to be getting so much might. And the Fury just looks dumb. Then we got Brutal Aggression, we got Ceaseless Might. A lot of people like to use the Wraith Execution. It's just awful though. Like, you might as well get 2 executions on a captain, rather than just, you know, hit 1 on a grunt and then hit 1 on the captain. You know, it's like, Retaliation, Vengeful Drain, because as I've said, when you're low on health on Brutal difficulty, you're just going to die, so I do this so I get the drain off, and so therefore I can get my health back. However, gaining Burst of Might is also very good, because you can do that and immediately consume them. It's pretty much the same thing. Now I've literally said that out loud, you know what, might as well just use that, because if you have Ceaseless Might, you can use a drain, bam, you're back up to full health, so you might as well have already had that ability, and then you can execute someone. So you know what, no, that's the best one. Moving down to the Predator skill tree, we have Elven Agility, Spectral Dash. The Silent Runner is just awful. This one's really funny because you can just teleport around, and especially with the new Undying Mask, it's just OP. Brutalize, I like to end in with the additional might and hit streak, pretty cool. Then of course we have Contagion. This is how like Poisoning Grog used to work in Shadow of Mordor, and I just feel like the other ones are a bit awful, and I kind of like this one. Proximity Trigger is another really good one, but like, I don't even bother anymore. Like, Stealth is a bit dead, especially late game. You just go in and kill things instantly, so it's not really a big issue. Monster Hunter, it doesn't really matter. I mean, like, as I said, stealth kills are pretty awful in general. As long as you hit 1 stealth attack on the captain, it doesn't really matter, does it? Deadly Spectre, I use Brutalize, though I actually usually take the Drain. However, it doesn't actually kill them, it just makes them run away, which is a bit dead. But really, I just turned that off completely. I used Brutalize when I wanted to get my challenges, because you could just walk past, brutalize someone, and then you won't get automatically discovered for brutalizing someone, so you can just walk away. Death Threat, I have Worse Than Death equipped, because currently with the new Shame changes, Shaming is a lot more effective, so I just do that. However, I used to run a Vow of Violence, and if you're still struggling to get extra gems, Vow of Violence is the way to go. And as you see, we have 32 points into Prejudice to Prestige. That only gives us 25% bonus damage on critical hits, but it's absolutely savage. Like this, it's brutal. As soon as you get a critical hit, you can instant kill captains. It's mental. Anyway, moving down, we've got Detonate. I like using spiders. I mean, you can use ghouls, I suppose. It's up to you. Bursting Arrow is just a bit dumb. It looks sick though when you can just teleport onto it and just slam dunk someone. Freeze Ping, I have it against Olog High and Beasts, so therefore I'm able to pin Olog captains who may be vulnerable against that. Deep Freeze is a bit dead, because after you've done it, the moment you attack them, they're still going to get freed, so that's a bit crap. And Freeze Pin is probably the better one, because you can get Fleeing in Terror, and so therefore you can get some nice stealth attacks or whatever. But really, I just like using it against Ologs, so that's why I keep that. Bird of Prey, Eagle Sight, very good, but of course Talon Strike is overpowered, especially since it instant kills grunts. Mighty Shot, I like to use Firestorm. I mean, I used to use Venom, and then Freeze Blast is also very good. It's really up to you. I've actually like stopped using elemental attacks, as you'll see in a minute, so I'm just gonna actually disable that. But I don't use Mighty Shot, it's just bad. Shadow Strike, I've currently got Shadow Strike pull equipped just because I was doing some stuff with my Pretender captains. If you have not seen my video where I talk about Pretenders and making infinite tower captains, click that link at the top right. But of course, other than that, I would just use Shadow Dominate, because the moment you see a broken captain, you can just immediately teleport to them and you won't risk dying. And that also means you don't have to take Mindbreaker later on, as you'll see. You got Raid Prestige. This one I'm not too bothered about, like, it's whatever really. Then we have Throwing Daggers. Now that these don't give might anymore, it's just not particularly good. I just do the Rain of Blades just because then you can hit multiple people. It's still pretty awful though. Elven Light, here we go. This is the main one. Winter's Breath is incredibly overpowered against captains, but the moment they become immune against that, you have to rely on Poison. Poison is easily the best one because it can go through shields, unlike Fire. However, I've kind of just started liking using like the basic version of it. If you saw my last gameplay video where I was revealing the new Calibre skin, when you have like the Nazgul ring, Isildur's ring of power, when you do that attack, it actually releases like a really cool effect, and it just looks really cool. Plus, this one actually stuns captains more effectively than using an element. Plus, if they're enraged or immune against it, then it's a completely pointless ability. Moving on again, we have Consume. As I said, it's good. I just use it to increase Wrath because it's okay. I mean, Olog Lord is probably a good one. I mean, the fact is, though, is Consume still works against Olog captains for some reason, which I think is a glitch, but you know what? Who cares? Chain of Souls is effectively a better version of Chain Execution. But, of course, I like my Wrath, so I'm going to get that. Here we have Treasure Hunter. This is one of the best skills. This is the one you definitely want to get at the beginning of the game. I literally always max out Wraith abilities first. Of course, you don't get Necromancy until the end of the game, but the point is I get Treasure Hunter straight away because picking up items is like the most annoying thing in the game. As you see here, we have Mindbreaker. This is probably one of the better ones because you can just instantly dominate captains, but as I've said, if you use the Shadow Dominate skill, you can just immediately dominate them and there's literally no point. And of course, I love my gear, so I always get Discerning Eye on there. Prospector is also quite good, but by the time you get all the Gondorian artifacts, like unless you're sweating it from the beginning of the game, you're going to already have max gems, and so Prospector is just pretty weak in general. Then we have Raise Dead, very, very good ability. You got to get Undying Loyalty, like it's just the best skill in the game. Rate Prestige, you get health recovery. It's per kill, so it's just pretty awful in general. So don't really bother with that. Moving on, we also have Caragor Rider. I like to just get Pounce. It's not really up to you. I mean, like it's like with the beast skills, it's sort of like a trade. You either get bonus health or something, or you have to sacrifice health to do an ability. So obviously, I picked the other one. Really, like all the actual abilities for beasts are just pretty weak in general. Then we have Graugs. As you see, you can do more health on execution, or you can just get more might. Like surely more might is better because therefore you'll just be able to eat more. And so therefore the health you get will equal out more, and as a result you'll be able to kill more people from eating them. Like, yeah, I mean overall basic Graugs aren't that strong. Really, you ought to just be using like elemental Graugs, and considering they have the ability to like breathe their element as in the square triangle ability, like the Elven Light, except on beasts, you can do that with Graugs, and that's just good. So therefore having extra might is good for that. Moving on, we have Cool Mount. You can just use Graugcool if you want to use the Helm Mask. I always get his name wrong, so I'm not even going to bother pronouncing the second part. But of course, Drake is definitely the best one. Shadow Mount. I like to just Shadow Mount Unbroken Caragors, just because it saves time. However, Packmaster is usually the best one. Then we have Dragon Rider, Scales of Iron. The other one's awful, just Scales of Iron. And then Mountain Prestige. This one I'm not a particular fan of, but if you love using beasts, and especially with the new changes to beast damage against captains, this is more than viable. 3%, very savage, but of course I don't use it. Then we have Drain. Of course, a lot of people just use Domination and don't think to unequip it. But the thing is, though, you could still dominate captains without this ability. So I always like to go for Bright Lord's Wrath, where you can fully regain health, although it doesn't actually work. You only regain partial health even on brutal difficulty, and it gains Wrath, which is just cool. Of course, you can use Quiver of Souls, but when you've got perfect counters giving you like Quiver of Souls, it's like, nah, it doesn't really matter. Spectral Glaive, you got Deadly Striker. Glaives are pretty bad because the actual charge up time usually means you'll get attacked before you're able to actually use it, and considering the only time you're going to use it is when you're surrounded by enemies, it's just not very good. You have the Ring Wraith ability, cursed weapons, like... It's really a bad ability because it only affects things that are raised by Ring Wraith, like your Wrath ability. Like, come on, if this was raised dead in general, then this would be a much better ability, but it's just a bit pointless. If you're still using the Elven Rage, I would recommend using the Fire Blast just because it looks cool. But of course, by the end game you won't have that, so it doesn't really matter. Moving on, we have Shadow Strider. I use the Teleport, it's just cool. It's really overpowered as well with the new mask. And then we have cool followers. I like to use bodyguards. It's just sort of a thing. It's just fun when you're walking around with your guy. You can just make him go after some random grunts. It's a good time. But other than that, I would usually use Cluster of Spiders because spiders are OP. Then we have Dominate Captains. I like to use the Enraged Followers one because I'm gaining so much Wrath most of the time. I just use that. But then, of course, Lifeblood is also very effective. And finally, you get your Storage Prestige. This is like my second most used skill because 10% bonus Wrath is very, very good. Anyway, that is a run through of all of the skills that I use on my character. Of course, I change some of these abilities up occasionally. As you saw, I was changing a few as I was going through. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what you choose. It's all about your playstyle, but that's what I'm using if you were interested. Now we're going to be moving on to the gear. This is the one that most people are interested in. My sword, as you can see, is Humilator. This is an epic drop, and as you see, Might is unlimited for 10 seconds after killing a captain. This is level 80 because I couldn't get it off a captain who was higher than level 80. I effectively had this sword since I was level 28, and I've only just upgraded it due to the new changes. It has 10 critical hit chance because Mans loves his critical hits. You can use any of the legendary swords. As you see, you get like the legendary swords do end up having more damage. Like, they end up having an extra 3 damage or something for the same level. But, of course, I just don't really care about them. Most people would use this sword from the Nazgul set, because that gives you the really cool ability to resurrect grunts on melee attacks. But I'm just like, nah, fam. I like using my unlimited might. It's grossly overpowered, and so I use that. Moving on, we have the Blackguard Dagger. It looks really cool. And as you see there... 80% increased damage to enraged enemies, but it's only stealth damage, so it's not a big thing. But I mainly use it because critical hit damage is increased by 33%. Very savage. And of course, it has the set bonus, and that's why I like to equip it there. And then I have the bow. I've actually got another bit of gear. Let's see that. It's trash. Just leave it. So, of course, I use the Blackguard bow. 25% chance to replenish 1 health shot, very, very good, and increased range damage to enraged enemies, very strong as well. I use this one the most. Of course, I did used to use the longbow of horror because headshots were actually so satisfying, and of course longbows are much stronger and they do more damage, of course. But this is pretty much the go-to sword because that legendary set bonus, 25% chance to inflict fire, poison, frost, or curse. It's just so good. It's quite amusing actually because if you use this set bonus, you can actually freeze captains who are immune to frost. Because if you hit them with a frost ability, they get frozen for a split second and then they break out of it. The thing is though, if you do it after numerous attacks, you can end up doing the flurry because the game considers them frozen even though they're breaking out of it each time. Which is quite funny because you can effectively bypass one of the best immunities in the game using this set, which is very overpowered. Then we have the Servant's Blackened Armor. This was just introduced, and so I'm using it because it's kind of cool. It looks amazing. It's probably one of the best looking armor sets in the game, especially with the new masks, so that's why I'm using it. The legendary set bonus for the Nazgul set is just pretty trash in general. Undead is awful because they move so slow, so having those followers is just bad. But as you see here, allied grunts have a 40% chance to resurrect when they die, very strong. And of course, critical hit chance, apply curse on 25% chance. That's very good. And yeah, I just realised I've actually got my perfect wealth gems equipped on my armor still. I did this so I could get 33 bonus XP, so I'll be able to level up really quickly. Really, what I should be doing is switching that out to perfect warrior gems because they're absolutely mental. Of course, I don't actually have another perfect one, so I'm just going to give myself 30 bit extra health. And as you see there, it's gone right down. But now I'm going to do 50% increased damage, even more, pretty much, even more insane damage. I get lots of gems, but of course you need literally like 240 something in order to get a perfect gem, like 240 of these. So it's going to take a while before I get another one. But that's what I'd like to do. I like to get a full set of 5, damage gems, and then I'd like to get the rune which is 30% less damage to followers, because when you do the math on it, having your followers take 30% less damage actually gives them like an advantage over dealing 30% more damage. Although they, in theory, it should do the same. It's just like, yeah, it's a bit hard to wrap your head around. But the point is having more health in the long run on followers means they do more damage than if they had less health and they were dealing more damage. So I like using that. Plus, getting 6 perfect red gems is like a pain. So just don't worry about that. I just exited out of it again. I do apologise. Right, moving on to my cloak. As you see here, I'm using the Mask of the Undying. This is literally the most savage thing in the entire game. It's completely broken. As you see there, the dash is there, costs no focus, and you get increased damage. Even if it didn't have that second part of the legendary effect, this would be overpowered, because the dashes literally make you immortal, provided you spam it enough. Then, of course, you have undead allies take 50% less damage. That's very strong. But yeah, it looks really cool, and it's got an incredibly overpowered ability. Before, I would probably... I don't actually remember what I used to use, to be fair. I think I would have actually used, like, this one, the Dark Embrace, because it causes terror or something, but, like... I don't actually remember what I used to use. I think I used the Cloak of War, to be fair. You know what, now looking at this is what I used to use, the Cloak of War, because less damage from ranged attacks. Because on brutal difficulty, hunters are literally aids, because you can't dodge their attacks, and they, of course, two-shot you. And then, of course, health on per second whilst on fire is just cool. Literally, the Warmonger set is, like, one of those, like, legendary sets which are really, really cool. Like, the legendary effect on there is incredibly strong, especially when you get all 4 pieces. But the problem is Warmonger captains are awful. And it's, for some reason, it's really rare to get legendary Warmongers. It just doesn't happen for me. But yeah, at the moment I'm just using the Mask of the Undying. It's just really good. Moving on again, we have Isildur's Ring. Increased raised dead radius, pretty good. And then, of course, 65% increased damage dealt by undead followers. That is mental, especially if you put that on some undead captains that you've just resurrected in a fight. Very, very good. But as you see here, I got like a blood rune. That one's alright. The problem is, though, the legendary slaughter set is actually really awful. Look at that, slowly draining health and all that sort of stuff. It's just not worth it. And so, therefore, getting the Rune of War would probably be my best bet. But effectively, guys, that is my current gear setup. Of course, this will change, and I've still got to get another gem, even though I'm already max level. And, of course, as you see here, I haven't even got half of the legendary sets. Like, I've still got to get Machine, and I literally still got all of Dark to get, and Terror. So, I've got a long way before I get all the legendary sets, and so my armor, like, sort of preferences may change. But as of now, the new armor sets with the Cloak and the Blackened Servant's armor is grossly overpowered, and so I'm going to be using that at the moment. Of course, if you would like me to see, like showcase a particular legendary set in like a video and then give a sort of analysis of what I think about this and its applications into certain playstyles, please do leave a comment down below. And one other thing before you guys leave, as you may have noticed, I did avoid putting in an intro today. A lot of people were saying that the intro was a bit naff, but then a lot of people were saying the intro was good. And so I'm sort of stuck in a bit of a middle ground. And so if you guys could please leave down in the comments, could you use the hashtag UGBugIntro. I know I'm stealing that from Yai, but it's just going to make it easier for me to search through comments. And then put yes or no, depending if you want me to keep or remove the intro from my videos. It's up to you, really. It doesn't really bother me if you guys want to completely trash on the intro. Of course, I want to do whatever you guys like. So if you don't want the intro anymore, of course, hashtag UGBugIntro, no, and then you'll be done. So, I've said what I need to say. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you thought it was interesting, helpful, or funny, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, as I've already said. And, yeah, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Cue the music.